I certainly will be a big challenge tomorrow night in Christchurch. The Crusaders hosting the Queensland Reds. I want to ask the two of you, how much development, or maybe there's been regression, have you seen in the Reds this year compared to last year, Shep?
Well, I think the inclusion of a lot of the rebels that have come up has been a huge part of their continued success and maybe their growth. You look at the inclusion of Lockie Anderson, Salakai Loto's come across, Dalgunu. I even think Jeremiah Murray earlier in the season was fantastic for them. And I think just building their squad out and creating a bit more depth has really helped. But probably the big thing that I think separates the Reds, certainly from some of the other Australian teams, is just their unselfishness. All of their players are constantly looking for ways to put their teammate away. Give the ball early, back up, get a second touch, move the ball into space. I just think that's one big part of their game that has really impressed me in 2025, Timmy.
Yeah, I think part of the improvement also has been their forward pack and their offloads, how they're getting balls away. But also I think what Les Kiss has done this year, I reckon he's put a stamp on these younger players coming through. Bryant and Joe Bryle, when you look at those two players where they were last year, I think that's a sign of a good coach, is showing that you can bring these players through. Gave them a little bit of time last year, gave them a lot more time this year. And look how Joe Bryle's come on this year. So Bryant and Bryle, I think that's an example of a very good coach. He can bring those couple of players through.
Great. Add in someone like Dre Pakeho in the same conversation. One man who's back from injury this week, Will Jordan. That's a scary boost for a team that's already flying, Tim.
Oh, isn't it? Yeah, a knee injury, so he's coming back from that. And they thought he might have been ready last week, and then they said, no, let's just sit him on the sidelines for one more week. It was a knee injury that kept him out for, I think, about 3.5, 4 weeks. So he's unbelievable. He's one of the best players in the world when he's in full flight.
His connection also with the wingers, you talk about people being unselfish. Well, he's another perfect example of someone who scores a lot of tries himself, but he's always looking to create.
Well, gives the ball early to Sevu Reece,
doesn't he?
Yeah.
And Sevu Reece always benefits when he's got Will Jordan inside him. So, yeah, it is a really scary thought for the Reds. They're going to have to be on their game. And not only with him bringing the ball back in counter-attack, but he's very good at getting inside balls off 10 in and around the ruck. He'll float around in there, and if the forwards aren't switched on close to the ruck, he'll cut through.
Well, you heard Tate McDermott talk about it before, about how do you keep the ball away from the back three. And it's difficult. You either got to put the ball in the stands and then you've got to back your line out, or you kick and try and back your defensive line against an exciting back three.
The other big news for this match, and of course you'll go through all the team selection news with Nick McArdle on the call-up, Shep, is Harry Wilson selected to play for the Reds. There was some serious concern last week when they played the Drua. He ran off the field. It kind of went unnoticed late in the game, holding his arm, and given he's just returned from an arm break, real concern. But he's going to play, Tim. That's a big inclusion.
Yeah, I saw him come off the field, but I didn't then look. And you guys were saying James Hall said he saw as well when he went straight into the tunnel into the dressing room. So maybe he has to extend that arm guard a little bit longer, because where he had that fracture was right at the end of where his plate went in there last year. So he might have to extend that arm guard all the way up to his shoulder.
We just saw a vision of him at training, and he's got the old Mal Meninga, like it's a swag around his forearm there.
My only criticism of Les Kiss last week is I thought quite a few of the top-line players played far too long into that game. Considering the conditions, and you could see the physicality lifting from the Fijian Drua, I would have liked to have seen a few more of them come off. So
I think
fingers crossed it's nothing serious for Harry Wilson.
I think he explained that, and there was a little bit of like, which one do you sub? Because you had to maybe get Fraser off, maybe get Harry Wilson off. You can only get one off.
They finished with 13 players at the end of the game.
Yeah.
For that reason, because it took guys off and they weren't allowed to replace them. A former Red, of course, is now lining up in the black and red for the Crusaders. James O'Connor will come off the bench. Timmy, he may very well be doing that, what he did against the Blues, against the Reds, and icing the game late.
Well, he's been unbelievable. Last week there was a stat down in Canberra. I couldn't really believe that he is the highest point scorer for the Crusaders. The majority of the time he's been coming off the bench. So I found that hard to believe, but he's just been... This try here, watch him straighten up here and look up. Like, that's the class of James O'Connor, and they don't lose any of their momentum when he comes off the bench, Shep.
From a personal perspective, having known James and played with him a lot, to me, watching him play, he seems the happiest I've ever seen him be. But also I feel like he treats every game like it's a bonus.
Yeah.
Like, I shouldn't still be playing, so I'm going to treat this opportunity as a bonus in my career. And he plays like that.
And his body's in good shape, and looks like there's some rumours around that he might go to Leicester. Andre Pollard's finishing up there. And,
possibly.
Are you the number one fly half at Leicester, or you come off the bench again?
Yeah, which means tomorrow night could potentially be the last time we see James O'Connor in Super Rugby Pacific, if the Reds can can cause an upset. So the veteran on the bench for the Crusaders. There's a young gun in the number 10 for Queensland, though, Tom Lynagh, and a big challenge for him tomorrow night.
He's up for it. He hasn't failed a challenge yet from what I've seen. It's a final. We're all up for it. It's exciting. There's a lot said about what the Crusaders are good over there, and we absolutely respect that. So we know it's going to be tough. But I'll back Tommy to stand up and direct us around the park.
Yeah, great vote of confidence from Les Kiss there, backing his fly half to direct them around the park. And this, I think it's fair to say, is his biggest audition, Tim, of the year for maybe the starting Wallaby spot for that Lions series.
Well, for finals time, you've got to really stand up. And I watched Tom the last 2 games. Watched him last week defensively. Outstanding. Didn't shirk a tackle at all. And he gets off the ground. He gets a couple of stingers to his shoulders because he makes these big hits and he's only small.
What about the shot he puts on Canavare to push him out and save a try? Maybe there could have been more of a rap. But
so a lot of people talk about he's a small character, but I tell you what, he defence outstanding. We know about his kicking game, but yeah, you're right. This is a really big match for Tom Lynagh to show where he's at in his progression on his career.
Yeah, I agree. We've spoken so much about Noah and Donaldson this year, and he's kind of flown under the radar, but he's done such impressive things. He's well and truly in the mix for that starting 10 jersey for the Wallabies.
How much is he being helped, not just at the Reds, but potentially his audition for the Wallabies, given the form his captain and the man inside him, Tate McDermott, is this week claimed the golden postie, so he's been crowned by the Between Two Posts crew as the best Australian player this season, and by a record number of votes.
Wow.
Polled more votes than anyone else in the Posties history. But he is in outstanding form, Shep.
He's unbelievable. He's been so good this year, Tate McDermott. And just quickly to continue the conversation about Tom Lynagh, any good 10 has got to have a great forward pack, a great 9 and good backs around him. But he is extremely lucky that he's got someone like Tate McDermott, not only with his skill on the field, but also his leadership. I feel like his leadership has come such a long way this year, Timmy, and just the way that he's been able to, especially with Harry Wilson out, balance that team and keep them more composed during the season.
He's had an outstanding year, hasn't he? And probably just had the best year of his career. But I reckon there's 3 players that the Wallabies can't afford to be injured going into the Lions series. One's Tate McDermott, Bobby V, and I'd probably say, who was the other one? Angus Bell.
Yeah.
So those 3 players, you can't have those blokes injured. And Tate McDermott, what a season he's had so far. Long way to go.
And he will be, I reckon, in a pretty close battle to claim that starting halfback spot. The Reds have got some great depth in their back line. You touched on some of the names earlier, Shep. Filippo Daungunu comes in to start on the wing this week in place of Tim Ryan, who isn't scoring the tries, but he's doing a lot of the tough stuff, the junkyard dog. But, I mean, what an absolute privilege that you can bring in someone like Filippo.
Yeah, they've got fantastic depth, don't they? But Daungunu just has been so great over the last couple of years. Unfortunately, the hardest thing he's battled with is injury. He just hasn't been able to consistently play for the Reds or for the Wallabies. But he's going to make a huge impact on the wing. And, of course, it gives them the opportunity of being able to move him into the centres if they do need to juggle the back line a little bit.
I think finals times, especially when you go to the Crusaders in Christchurch, it's probably going to be damp. You need some size, and you probably take size over pace. That's why the selections happened.
It was mentioned in the package we saw, the Reds video, that win last year. Tate McDermott said, a year is a long time. That was a long time ago. But how much confidence they get out of breaking that 25-year hoodoo they broke last year?
I reckon you go there now and you don't have any fear, because the hoodoo's been broken and you actually can back yourself. And the tries they scored on this evening last year was incredible. So I just think they've got confidence. They understand they can win there. They understand they've got no fear about the crowd and the match.
In addition to that, round 8, I think it was, they performed extremely well against the Chiefs in Hamilton. If they hadn't missed a few opportunities, they probably could have won that game. So I feel like there's confidence in New Zealand in general, not just in Christchurch. But I don't think there'd be anyone in that Reds team, honestly, that doesn't think this is a winnable game. I think they're all ready and up for this one.
Yeah, Shep, you know what I reckon the challenge is going to be is whether you take penalty goals or not. And I think you've got to score at least 3 tries if you're any chance of beating the Crusaders. So if you just take penalty goals early, which I don't think the Reds will, you know you've got to score 3 or 4 tries to beat the Crusaders.
Yeah.
Oh, how I wish Justin Harrison was here right now to go at you, Tim.
No. You don't need penalty goals.
No, it certainly will be a big challenge. That's a massive game on Stan Sport, exclusive on Friday night, and then that leads us into a huge doubleheader on Saturday.